how have things been up there in Canada through this pandemic?
Not as great as I would hope. The vaccine rollout, Canada, as I understand, doesn't have a vaccine production infrastructure in place. Canada is, though, second largest country in the world by landmass. There's only
Hmm.
about, what, 40 million people here. So there's more people in the state of California than there are Canadians. Understandably, apparently, they lack the infrastructure to produce vaccines. We've been dependent on vaccines coming from abroad, as I understand. So it's been a little slower. Like I have friends in Brazil who have been fully vaccinated, where myself, I don't have a time. I got an email saying that I'm eligible now, but I have to look into it. It hasn't been as immediate as I would have hoped.
And you bring in Brazil, so
Mm. It's
let's
a can of worms.
let's shift over across this. Well, actually, we don't even have to go across the sea, just down the landmass. And
Yeah.
what is going on there? I was reading an article today from BBC that it's rough down there. What's happening?
Dr. Joe, let me tell you, I am Brazilian born and raised. I speak Portuguese fluently. I read the news every day, and it's hard for me to make sense of what's going on down there. As I'm sure most of you guys know, the current president is a bit of a denialist, which is putting it mildly, I think. From the very beginning of the pandemic, he downplayed it. He talked about it's just a little cold. He made fun of people who wore masks. He incentivized large gatherings. In fact, right outside of his official presidential residence, right? So through the very beginning, like from the very beginning, this administration didn't take the threat seriously. And I'm sure as Americans, that doesn't sound super weird to you. It's just that our guy is still, putting us through the ringer with this whole thing. He said some things, and here's the thing, right? Bolsonaro's history, basically, he was the equivalent to a congressman, and he was well known for two things. He was not very well liked by his peers because he was very, very rude, to put it mildly, right? The guy doesn't have a filter. He'll curse, openly. Like he talks in a way that you wouldn't expect a politician to talk like. However, that window has shifted because of the years that he's been in power, right? So he was well known for being disliked by his peers in Congress and by the fact that he just spoke openly. And it wasn't always something that really should be spoken, let's put it this way. So, for reasons that I'm sure historians will be debating for years to come, he really resonated with that. Not unlike what happened with Trump. Like he's not called the Trump of the tropics for no reason. There's a lot of parallels. Though Trump he was truly an outsider, right? Like in the private sector, he wasn't a politician, then became a politician, right? Like in his first go, the highest office of the land. Bolsonaro, on the other hand, though they share a lot of similarities, he was a career politician for a long time, though he tried to sell himself as an outsider, but that was more due to the fact that he was disliked by Congress, not because he was really an outsider. He's been a politician his whole adult life almost.
And
But yeah, it's hard to. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
uh, is it true that he campaigned on the platform of "I will kill 30,000 people"?
Not quite. I can give you some context on that. And before we get into this, I am an outspoken Bolsonaro critic, so you're not going to hear many praises of him from me. But basically, to explain that quote, in the 90s, he was doing a local TV interview, and again, he was known for just saying outrageous things. And as you may not know this, but Brazil between 64 and 84 was a military dictatorship. And he was an open supporter of military dictatorship, and it shocks a lot of people because there were a lot of political killings and people had to go into exile. We didn't have freedom of the press. It was dark, those 20 years that preceded my birth. I was born in the year that it was over, like in 84. In 85, we became a democracy again. People when they hear a congressman saying that no, that was a good time, like they're understandably curious and some furious. So he was doing an interview, a TV interview, and host asks, I'm paraphrasing here, but he asked something about like, but you said that they should have killed people, like more people in the dictatorship, because there's some discrepancy in the numbers, like how many people were actually killed during those years, which always happens in these situations, especially when you didn't have freedom of the press. But we all agree that if one person was killed during that period because of political reasons, there was one too many, right? So the host is asking, how do you say that? Like they didn't kill enough people? And he says, like with an angry look on his face, like he means business. He's like, you know me, I think they didn't kill enough. If it was me, 30,000 would have died. So to say that he campaigned on that would be stretching the truth a little bit, but he absolutely said that. He celebrates the Brazilian dictatorship, the military dictatorship, and he openly said many times that he thinks that not enough people died during that period. So yeah, some people say, in fact, as we cross the 300,000 deaths in Brazil from COVID, some people said, hey, remember back in the 90s, he was saying that he wanted to kill 30,000? He went tenfold on his goal, it seems. So,
Wow. That's
So
powerful.
do you think part of it is him kind of getting off on it?
The way he talks, it might, like, some people who listen to you say this might think you're being too harsh on the guy, but consider this. Recently, he does like Facebook live streams. It's like his little State of the Union type of address situation, right? Like it's every Thursday, I think it is. He does like Facebook live streams, and it's the way he talks to people. And one of the things that made him attractive to like the common man is the fact that he just like goes on Facebook on live stream and talks to people about the things that he wants to talk to people about, right? So some people, his supporters see that as like, see, he's one of us. He's like a simple guy. Anyway. So in one of his live streams, right, he holds up a printed like sheet of paper. It was like a meme that in his his Twitter crowd was circulating, right? And he's also very popular among WhatsApp users, which is like an instant messaging service that's not very popular in North America, but it's like massive in emerging markets like Southeast Asia and Latin America, right? Anyway, so this meme was circulating on his WhatsApp circles, and he holds it up, and then it's like two images, right? So the top, it says Bolsonaro claims with no evidence that if we enact lockdowns, people might commit suicide over it, right? Which is something he did. He was against the lockdown because he said, again, without anything to back that up, that people are going to kill themselves in droves if we enact the lockdown. So no lockdown, we have to leave it all open, right? COVID be damned. Immediately underneath that image, it was international news about researchers noticing a spike in suicides since the beginning of the pandemic. So there's no connection with the lockdown policy and the suicides, but the picture has him like smiling, and then the caption says Bolsonaro was right yet again. So he's holding this piece of paper, which again is saying that there's been a spike in suicides from young people since the beginning of the pandemic, and he's holding it to the camera and smiling. He's happy that he was proven right, even though he really wasn't, because the original news, he was talking about like locking it down, like shutting down the economy is people are going to kill themselves. And that's not what the story was about. It's just that the pandemic created a lot of psychological problems, or exacerbating pre-existing psychological problems that led people to kill themselves. And to have a president holding up a piece of paper that says people are killing themselves and he's smiling about it, I wouldn't blame anybody who thought, like Thomas suggested, that he's getting off on it, especially considering his the previous things he said about, I would have killed 30,000 people. It's outrageous.
Stretch the